Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time on your Friday morning to come and join us for our webinar on social selling. So here in the SalesWorks headquarters, also known as my kitchen counter, we have Chris Kovac, who is joining us this morning to talk to us about social selling and LinkedIn in particular. So before we dive into this, I want to take just a minute and kind of give you a little bit of background on how I have worked with Chris and why you want to listen to him today. He has been an just amazing resource for me in terms of helping my clients make sure that whatever marketing efforts they're doing are very on track with their goals and objectives. You know, so much of marketing is well, I think this looks good and I see my competitors doing this, so maybe I should do it too. Or, you know, the ever subjective, well, it looks pretty, so let's go with it. And I will tell you that Chris is definitely good at making sure that whatever decisions you make align to the strategy behind getting to your next client and your next perfect client for again, to just even refine it further. So I have been working with him now for, I don't know, probably what, about 3 years?
3 or 4.
Yeah, we've had just an amazing, a lot of fun together. He also, so he's got a side hustle. He's got 2 different businesses, actually probably more than that.
No, just 2.
Just the 2 when you get into what he does. So you'll also know him from being the Riverwatch beef guy. And he has actually been listed as one of the up and coming companies to watch, particularly in the organic space, based on he's doing a grass-fed beef. So if you are a beef eater like me and you love eating clean beef, you're definitely going to want to follow him on Riverwatch and participate in what he's doing there as well. But today he's got his marketing hat on. So I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to set things up with just a little bit of housekeeping. So first thing that I want to ask, I've got everybody muted because we've got a lot of folks on today, and Chris has just a ton of insight to share with us today. And we're not even scratching the surface on what he's going to be covering for us on the 13th. So just know that we're talking today to kind of give you an idea of just how deep we're going to go into social selling during our full day workshop that we've got coming up. But with that being said, even if all you're doing is tuning in today, there's some really great information that he's sharing about just all the changes that have happened on LinkedIn, because I was one of those early adopters, and I think, Chris, you were too, that we all got on board with LinkedIn, what, 10 years ago?
Yeah,
something like that?
Maybe, I was 2005, so almost 15 years ago.
Wow. So back then it seemed like it was really cool. And then I know Reid Hoffman sold it to Microsoft, or maybe there was an iteration in there and it seemed like it got away.
Yeah, they did. And we'll talk about the evolution of LinkedIn here in a little bit. But for today's purpose, we're going to introduce the concept, excuse me, of social selling and really focus on LinkedIn as the best channel to be top of mind with your prospects and to message them in a relevant way. And to your point, LinkedIn's changed a lot, and we'll also go through the new advertising formats that they have, which are really, really cool.
Fantastic. All right. So as far as homework or as far as housekeeping issues, so we probably have easily an hour's worth of stuff that we're going to dig into today. There are a few areas that I'm probably going to have Chris dive a little deeper into, just based on, I know a lot of you that are on here, and I want to make sure that everything that we cover, you do see how you can take action and make it work on what you're doing right now. But with that being said, I will ask you to chat me questions periodically throughout the session, because the thing is once he gets going, I'm probably not going to interrupt as much if he's down a particular train of thought. But I do want to make sure that whatever questions that you have that come up, that we tag them and pull them to the side so that we can kind of create our parking lot of what we want to make sure that we get through today. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Chris, and you dive in and take it away. Let's see if it'll cooperate. There we go.
Good morning again, everyone. I'm excited to join Brendan and you all this morning. as far as an agenda, like Brendan said, we probably have an hour's worth of content at least, so we'll try to keep it to about 45 minutes or so to allow plenty of time for questions. We're going to introduce the concept of social selling. We're going to demystify LinkedIn advertising, and we talked a little bit ago about the new ad format, so we'll go through those. And then how to get started using a tool that we have that's a blueprint and the prospect journey. And our goal is to provide as much actionable information as we can. So you should have plenty of takeaways that you could go back to your desk, or while you're at your desk, you could dive into it today if you needed to, and then start to do some of the things that we talked about.
Now, one thing that I also want to let you all know is go check out the handout section on your registration today, or it's probably also on the side, on one of the buttons on the side of your screen today, because there is a handout and a worksheet that he has put together for us to follow, and we're going to dig into that a little later.
Thank you. So, sales statistics, this is something that I'm sure a lot of folks have seen. I know that Brendan uses it.
I've been all over them now. How many months have we been talking about this, about how many touches it takes to actually engage? So this is probably not new material for most of the folks that are on the call. I think that what's really hard for a lot of folks is to recognize that how these touches get made. And there's so many people that think that, well, if I just reach out and left message for them to call me back and said, hey, I was just checking in, that was a legitimate touch, and it's not. And what Chris is sharing with us today is how LinkedIn can work in terms of making these contacts highly actionable and relevant.
Yeah, it can act as another sales facilitator in your tool chest. And the most important takeaway here is the last bullet point: 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So what we're going to be talking a lot about today is how we can use LinkedIn as part of those contacts. So it can be meeting somebody in an event or talking to them at an event. It could be email newsletters. It could be a number of different things, but LinkedIn will play a key role. So I want to start with the idea of a marketing funnel, which I think a lot of folks are familiar with. Yep. The old school marketing funnel, if you will, was pretty straightforward. It was traditional marketing techniques, which was, as Brendan alluded to earlier, making things look pretty, or maybe having a catchphrase or something.
Commercials or ads.
Yeah, or public relations, even brochures. And then you did some advertising. Maybe you bought some banner ads, or maybe you did a radio spot. And then
dropped by some tchotchkes.
Yeah, that's right. And then all of a sudden, magically, you got a bunch of sales. Well, with technology and the sophistication of business continuing to evolve, the new marketing funnel looks different. And so you probably heard a lot of people talk about influencer marketing, but how do you talk to the right people at the right time? How do you produce content that tells your story and differentiates you from your competition? And then finally, how do you use social selling channels to actually capture leads and to drive real world sales and revenue, which is obviously important. So we are going to start with the evolution of marketing technology and social selling. The world of...
Now, don't freak out over this slide, everybody, okay? So
yes, and this is meant not to be readable, but more of a prop. And as Brendan and I were talking about a little bit ago, in 2008, we were doing some social media and some social influence outreach, and most folks at the time said, well, there'll never be advertising on social media, or it will only be consumer and not business to business. And boy, how things have changed. In 2011, there were about 100 companies that focused on marketing technology. That could be Google or Adobe or Salesforce
or AOL or
a number of different entities out there. And by 2005, we had 1,900. And by 2019, we actually have over 5,000 different marketing technology companies. And this is actually from Chief Martech. And so if you go to chiefmartech.com, you can see this in all its glory.
If you want to actually zoom in and look at who all those companies are, which I don't know of anybody that's on the call that really likes digging into that much research, but
no,
it's a crowded space.
The takeaway here is that you can't be all things to all people and all channels. And what we're going to talk about a lot today is the marketing fundamentals that will work on LinkedIn, but it may also work on some other technologies or social channels like a Twitter, or even emerging channels which haven't even been invented yet. So the idea is not to follow shiny objects because things are evolving so quickly, but really to go back to the basics. So we're going to spend a lot of time today focusing on LinkedIn. And as we talked about a little bit, and this is another eye chart not meant to be read, but LinkedIn was founded in late 2002. And in 2016, Microsoft bought them. They went public in, I think, 2011, somewhere around there. So, they were a successful publicly traded company. But the game changer was when Microsoft purchased them for a couple different reasons. They shored up the data analytics and all of the insights on the back end. They're not necessarily sharing all of those with us right now, but they are capturing a lot of different data. And they've also redone their advertising platform and really upgraded it. And I would say that it's probably the most sophisticated advertising platform of any of the social media websites. And we'll get into the nuances of that, but it's really cool. A lot of business professionals, they use LinkedIn to do due diligence on people, to do research, and so it's become a very powerful tool, not just to put a resume up or to showcase an individual's experience. So what is social selling? Let's focus on really the 4 pillars of social selling, and that would be creating a brand. Now, we have a brand for our company, but also creating a professional brand that kind of emulates the way that you think, the things that you're interested in, and personalizes you to your prospects, because people like to buy from people. They don't like to buy from faceless corporations.
Absolutely.
So that's a key. But more importantly, it's really finding the right people. You're not trying to talk to everyone. This is not mass media. How do you find the right prospects that could be ideal customers or ideal clients?
And what I want to emphasize here, and this is just based on the conversation that Chris and I had when we were prepping for today, is as he's talking through this, think the narrower, the better.
Absolutely, yes. I'm nodding my head violently.
So just be thinking of that as he's talking through these points. LinkedIn works when you get super specific about the who and the what they look like and the where they hang out. So just remember that all those things that I've had you do and the steps I've had you take up to this point, with being super clear about who your platinum clients are, who the gold clients are, he's going to be talking a lot about using that insight in LinkedIn in order to make sure that what you're doing is the right activity with the right people and the right audience.
As you mentioned, insights are key. There's a lot of information and insights that you can glean about the marketplace, about your competitors, about your own value propositions, and how prospects are if they're buying your value propositions, or maybe they're not. But ultimately, it's about building strong relationships. And so when we talk about referral partnerships, that's certainly one way to build strong relationships. Think of LinkedIn as kind of that introduction. So instead of going to a networking event with 1 million people, you can target the right people through LinkedIn, start to build that relationship, and continue that relationship for years, ideally. So the evidence is very clear that social selling works. This slide was taken directly from LinkedIn, so this is their data. But I think we all know a lot of the buying journey is done well before any kind of sales professional or business development person's involved. So, everyone's doing their due diligence prior to contacting the company.
Holy cow, look at the Harvard Business Review, the study that showed up there. 90% of decision, I didn't see that before, Chris. That's 90% of decision makers say they never respond to cold outreach.
Yes, and whether that's a call or even a cold email, you know, the inboxes are so crowded now, there's just too much clutter out there. And so you want to empower your prospects and your ideal customers and clients to learn more about you in a way that's beneficial for them so that you don't have to do those cold outreaches.
Well, and my target audience is CEOs, COOs, business leaders, all people that are reading Harvard Business Review.
That's right.
They're followers of it. So, wow. Okay.
And there's a couple other data points here, but we don't want to get too far in the weeds. But this model has been proven to be successful. We're still in early adoption phase, so there's still a lot of opportunities to kind of be the first in your market or the first to really differentiate yourself, so that you build a foundation that will pay dividends for years.
I got a lot of pioneers on the call, so this is going to be fun to see where they go with this.
So social selling works, and again, we're going to focus on LinkedIn. So there's a number of different things that you could do on LinkedIn, but for today, we're going to focus on the advertising types. And as I alluded to earlier, LinkedIn has really upgraded their advertising capabilities, and so we want to kind of talk through the new formats, and we'll get into much more detail on the 13th. But today we're just going to really do an introduction into these new formats. So,
and what Chris has done for you is he's actually taken snapshots of the different screens within LinkedIn. So you're going to be getting the slide deck today. I'm going to send out the email to everybody along with the recording link. Now, when you get that, so there's a lot of these little bitty slides that, quite frankly, my aging eyes, the print is way too small for me to see. He's just captured the screen so that you're going to recognize it when you go and do your own search within LinkedIn.
Yes, it's a visual cue so that when you're in LinkedIn, oh, okay, this is where I need to be. 'Cause
I'm in the right spot.
Yeah, they got a lot of capabilities and it can be confusing, but they're trying to make it straightforward. So a lot of folks have probably heard about a boosted post, and that is a way to do advertising. So what we would do on LinkedIn is we would post in a similar way to Facebook, which I'm sure almost everyone's familiar with, but we can actually promote that post to show up on LinkedIn feeds, and we can target who gets to see it. So if you're targeting CEOs, then it'll display that post within that title, or if you're trying to target food manufacturers, or if you're a law firm and you're trying to target folks. So it's a great way to get your content in front of the right people well before you start doing advertising, if you will.
So let's say, I know I've got folks in here that are targeting large retailers, and they're specifically after the buyers within these large retailers. So would a boosted post be a good way to target a new audience that you want to become aware of who you are and what value you would bring to them?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that could be, because people are still resistant on some levels to clicking on advertising. But if your prospects are seeing something that really resonates with them, you're starting to build that top of mind immediately, and then you're reinforcing that with other techniques. So the way that LinkedIn has organized the advertising is they want you to focus on, are you trying to build awareness? Are you trying to get eyeballs on a message? Or is it more of the consideration phase? Are you trying to get people to visit your website? Maybe it's engagement on your LinkedIn company page or within the posts that you're putting out there. It could also be promoting other content like blogs or videos so that you can get engagement not just on LinkedIn, but on your own properties as well. And then finally, conversion based, which is lead generation. And so what LinkedIn again wants you to do is pick whatever campaign is appropriate, or objective I should say, and then it'll give you different ad formats. So not all ad formats are available with the objectives.
Got it.
Okay. Okay. So here are the new LinkedIn advertising formats. Some of them have been around for a while, but the capabilities behind it as far as targeting and all kinds of other things have been upgraded significantly. So we're going to go through these at the top level, but a text ad, and these are all very straightforward. A text ad would be very similar to a Google ad. I think you get 30 characters or so per line. So that is basically as simple as an ad format as you can get. We also have the opportunity to do an image within an ad, and that's great for engagement. So if there's a visual of maybe it's an event or maybe a featured employee or a featured case study, we could use imagery to promote that message. There's a carousel image ad, which is simply a number of different images. So if you wanted to show kind of a number of different images in one ad, you can do that. And
So
those are
let's
pretty
say,
effective.
like I've got, one of my clients is an electrical contractor, and they are doing the coolest projects, and they're doing a ton of stuff with hotels. They do hotels, they do elevators, they do shopping centers, they do energy upgrades. So I mean, they could feature pictures of projects that they're doing in each of those spaces.
That is a great example to kind of show the depth and breadth of what they're doing out there. And oh, you're building this nice shopping mall or whatever it is. I mean, that's very compelling and something that's easy to show.
So LinkedIn is relevant whether you're building something that is a tangible product or whether it is an attorney selling a solution.
Absolutely.
So now let me go back to this here for just a second, because Chris, didn't you tell me that you did a text ad for an accounting firm that ended up getting their brand in front of like 10,000 people for 80 bucks?
Yes, but it was actually $8. And
$8 to get in front of
for
10,000 people.
impressions. And that goes back
Holy
to
cow.
being an early adopter gives you kind of a leg up on the competition. And so there are nuances and opportunities that you can uncover, which other folks aren't doing anything with, and you can rise right up to the top.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so go back now. Let's talk video.
Video snippets, I'm sure we've all seen video ads. Video ads are the best performing pieces of content. So it could be a 30-second video commercial, but ideally it would be more of a vignette, kind of talking about the story behind the story, if you will, as a teaser. And you can actually generate click-throughs to your website or to a microsite or landing page directly from the video ad. There's a few more formats. You can have ads that are only targeted to your followers. And
oh, that's cool.
yes, and so you already have a captive audience, and they're typically your best contacts, and so you can give them different messages or a more tailored message than the broader messaging you may be using for other folks. One of my favorite ads is a spotlight ad, which is a personalized ad, and it will pull the profile photo of whoever you're trying to target and put that in the ad. So it kind of,
what?
Yes, it has the personalization along with the brand that you're trying to target, and you can have a personalized message in there. I mean, not personalized to everybody, but to say, have you had challenges with your technology? We've got some folks that'll help. And that's an oversimplification, but they're really cool, and they tend to perform higher than the other ads. And finally, you can also do a job ad, very straightforward. One of the cool things that we've been utilizing a lot is a message-based ad, which is called InMail. And so I'm sure a lot of people have gotten, and it's unsolicited email, but it's also highly targeted. So those can be highly impactful and a key part of your advertising mix. So what we're going to do is get into the weeds here a little bit on the LinkedIn functionality. And as Brendan mentioned earlier, the idea on these slides is to be a visual cue, not so much to read the micro print, so that we can kind of talk through it, and if you choose to utilize LinkedIn, that it can help be a guide for you. The cool thing about LinkedIn, or one of the cooler things, is you can track conversions. So you can track leads coming in from a form, you can track track opt-in emails and all kinds of other data points. So the most important thing in advertising is to get qualified leads. You know, clicks could be not a key metric because you could not have the right eyeballs on it for whatever reason. So we can actually track what ad campaigns are producing good leads, bad leads,
tire kickers, time wasters.
Yes, absolutely. So and then what you do is you optimize for your best performing conversions. And so, you know, even several years ago, people would optimize for cost. Oh, okay, I'm going to reduce my cost per click. Well, that's not giving you the right information. Yeah. So in other words, LinkedIn has really upgraded their conversion tracking capabilities and integration with tools like Google Analytics and other tracking.
So you can tell very quickly if what you're doing is actually getting you the response you're looking for.
Yeah, you can tell typically within a few hours. It's not quite real time, but yes, within a day, if you were to put a spotlight ad out there and you wanted to see if it converted any calls or an opt-in email or whatever, yes, you could track that right at your dashboard.
Okay, so I know that you've told me a lot about how LinkedIn, it's really important to take the longer view in terms of this is a 3 to 6 month strategy or even longer. But while you're saying that, there are still a lot of tools in place to make sure that you're not just going to be throwing 3 months worth of spend or work into this black hole of money that you can't monitor along the way.
Yes, that's a great point. And you can utilize an agile approach, meaning you can turn things on and off, and you will get some traction right out of the gate. And so you're not going to have to invest a lot of time and resources, and then 6 months later, you'll have everything optimized. So, but it is a long-term strategy, and it's a continual feedback loop and optimization, and just trying to get better with the data that you have.
Well, any type of relationship marketing that you do, you're looking at least 90 days before you start to see an uptick. And then 6 months to a year is when you really start to hit your stride and figure out, and that's just about anything that you're going to do. So LinkedIn isn't any longer.
No, not at all. We often say the best time to plant a tree was 5 or 10 years ago. And so think of these activities as really planting trees, which are going to continue to grow.
And the next best time is today.
Yes, absolutely.
I love that Chinese proverb.
So another really cool thing about LinkedIn is the ability to really target your audience in a very narrow and granular fashion. So we'll go through a few of those capabilities here. The first one is targeting based on location. So you've probably heard of geo-targeting or geo-fences, and you can target by state, you can target by city, you could target nationally if you wanted to. And as you can see in the left-hand box, we just have Missouri clicked, but we could have Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, and Oklahoma if you were doing a regional push.
Or this would be something that I could do if I wanted to reach, say, manufacturers in Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah, so we would have the Kansas as a state, and we would click on Wichita, and only people in that market would be seeing that ad.
Okay, so I'm not going to be paying for a bunch of ads in markets that aren't going to make sense.
No.
Fantastic. Okay, cool.
And so if we were targeting Missouri, we could target all cities, but let's say we only wanted to target the top 2 markets in Missouri, and so obviously that would be Kansas City and St. Louis. So as you click around to your targeting, the box on the far right, it says forecasted results. So it'll actually give you an estimate of how many impressions based on the targeting that you'll generate, what it thinks the click-through rate will be, how many clicks you'll generate, and what the budget is. So it's not a perfect estimating tool, but it gives you a sense of, oh, hey, for, in this case, 740 days, we could do a 30-day highly targeted spend.
For $740,
yeah,
up to. So, but $220 to $740.
That's the range that it's recommending. So, you know, if you only had...
Again, that's a really, really low dollar investment to get that kind of reach.
Well, and if you dialed it back to daily, what, you know, doing some quick math here, what's that, $7 a day or something like that. So what you could do is do a $10 a day test for 7 days and see how it does, and then make some adjustments. So you don't necessarily have to do a 30-day spend. You could do a 1-day spend if you wanted to.
Wow. Okay, cool.
And these tools continue to get better. So this is probably the most powerful element of LinkedIn, and it's the ability to target your audiences. And we've been talking a lot about really focusing on your best targets. So I could spend a whole day going through this, so we'll kind of keep it
and we're going to get a chance to do that on the 13th. So there you go, a little bit of a teaser.
And we'll really get into examples and kind of show you how this works in the real world. But understanding your audience attributes is of course important, but we can target those. So you can, and there's probably 30 or 40 different attributes that you can target. This screen does not show all of them. So in the top screenshot here, you could target by company. That could be the size of the company. So if you wanted to target Fortune 500 companies, you could target 10,000 employees and up. If you wanted to target smaller, aggressive growth companies, it could be employees from 2 to 50.
So let's say, I know I've got somebody on the call that's, he's in the M&A business, and he is specifically looking for that business owner who's probably in 50s to 60s, that has a business that's at least probably 8 to 10 million in revenue and probably 25 plus employees, that, you know, may be a good target to be thinking about succession planning. So would this let you get narrow to have that conversation?
Absolutely. We could narrow for all the attributes that you just talked about. So we could target only business owners. Or you could target business owners and partners, if you know, similar. You could set an age range of 50 to 60 years old.
And LinkedIn knows all that.
As far as the user provides correct information.
Which I know LinkedIn is always telling me, hey, it's your birthday.
Yeah, so they're pretty good at that. You could also do years of experience. So if you're looking for somebody who's been in that particular industry or business for 20 years or 25, or
that's a good indicator,
or 5. It could be the revenue or the amount of employees that you can target. Now the revenue is a little tough, but the number of employees is another.
That's a good one that you can tag.
Yes, and all kinds of other things. You can also target by interest. So if they were interested in real estate, or if they were interested in family businesses, we can target those attributes as well. And so LinkedIn will target the profiles that fit all of those attributes first, if they check all the boxes, and then it'll continue to deliver messages to the people. So let's say if somebody was a business owner and they were 50 to 60, but there was only an audience of, let's say, a couple hundred people, we could expand that afterwards. And that's part of the insights that you can glean. Do we have too small of an audience? Or maybe that's a good thing that we're doing some hyper targeting. In the lower left hand, which I know is hard to see, but it's asking who your target audience is. So that could be demographics, it could be education, it could be your own company connections, or people that follow your network, a company size, even a company name. And the intermediate and advanced targeting, you could find a company, let's just say there's a couple hundred employees, and you could try to target the right people in that company. So let's say if you only wanted the C-suite in this particular company, you could target to that.
So I could get CEO, COO, CFO. It would have to be one of the O's, but yes. I could get there.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, or if you just want to target directors and managers, because maybe those folks are doing the due diligence and then providing the recommendations to the C-suite. So there's a lot of ways to slice and dice this. And again, we'll get into that on the 13th.
Okay, but now hang on for just a second, because you're going fast. There's a lot of ground that you've covered here so far. Let me just remind everybody now, as he's coming up with this insight, you're probably coming up with questions about how would this work for me and what do I do here? And he's going to get into a lot of that as we move, but make sure that you are messaging me with your questions, as we go through so that we can create our Q&A at the end, okay? So keep those coming.
Or if you happen to think of something after the call or over the weekend, send Brendan an email and we can follow up offline on that too.
Yeah, we're happy to help because
Yes.
I want to make sure that you take action from what we're talking about today, because there's stuff here that you could start this afternoon with a 2-line text ad.
Absolutely.
I mean, this would be something that would be a, hey, I just want to play with this and I want to throw $50 at it.
Yeah, and getting initial data and insights back will help your tree grow faster.
Absolutely.
You can also exclude people. So if you didn't want to talk to a particular title or somebody who had less than 5 years experience, you could do that too. So lots of opportunity to do targeting. You can also set budget estimates and schedule. So if you only had $25 a day, you could do that. You could set maximum bids, all kinds of opportunities to
Make your dollars go.
Yeah, manage your spend properly. So some tips here, and again, this is, you'll have the deck and you can kind of use this as a refresher, but the text ads are ideal for building awareness. There's tends to be not a lot of click-throughs on them, but there's also not a lot of cost because you're only getting charged if somebody clicks. So I've actually used in the past, don't click, give us a call, and you kind of get free ads. And LinkedIn, I think, frowns upon that a little bit, but text ads are great for building top of mind and to increase your frequency. The image ads we talked, they're great for social engagement and building second level influence, which is your friends' friends, your network. The spotlight ads, those personalized ads perform higher on a click-through rate than most of the other ad formats, either on LinkedIn or even other networks. We talked about the in-mail. The one thing that I need to mention is the in-mail comes from an individual, not from a company. So it's designed to be more conversational, and it's also designed to have a number of different messages because you only get about 500 characters. So it can be used as a drip campaign.
So this would be like a campaign where I could target a group of, let's go back to the retail example. So let's say I wanted to target buyers within Fortune 100 retailers.
Yes.
I could get that name and then it would be a kind of a variable data where it would plug in the first name and sound as if it's a personal message to them.
Yes, it would be personalized. You can choose that option, and then you wouldn't get to choose the people. LinkedIn would send that on your behalf, but you could see who engages with you and add them into your prospecting list.
And then are you charged based on messages sent or based on people that respond?
It's based on, you get charged somewhere around 30 cents or so for every in-mail that goes out.
Okay.
And so we tend to see about 33 to 35% engagement. So an engagement on an email may cost as little as $1, but the caveat there is different industries have different
Price
competitive,
points.
So it may be higher in some cases.
But the goal is to have a series of touches where you reach out and you could hit them on different pain points.
Absolutely, yeah. The pain point marketing, that's a huge opportunity that people tend to lead with their services or capabilities, not the pain points.
Yeah.
So that's a great way to differentiate yourself and to do cool things. There is a form-based ad that we didn't talk about, but you can actually, in the engagement and conversion module on LinkedIn, you can create an ad that actually has a form and people fill that form out within LinkedIn so that you don't have to take them to a separate landing page and video.
You didn't talk about sponsorship ads.
Yeah, they're good for
Have you used them very much?
Yeah, I don't tend to use those as much. We've been using a lot of the spotlight ads, text ads, a little bit of video, and the in-mail.
Okay.
Okay, so the best practices here is that targeting is key. So if we're trying to target a Fortune 100 buyer, we need to be using messaging that is absolutely appropriate for that particular audience, as opposed to some kind of generic messaging. It's also important to have, it's not a one-click sale. So it's not like buying a pizza and you're going to click on whatever ad on LinkedIn and then all of a sudden you're going to generate revenue. It's designed to fill that top of the funnel so that the rest of the funnel enables them to actually convert. We've talked that it's a long-term strategy. We've talked that frequency is key. So the 7 to 9 times, that could just be in LinkedIn as part of your overall 20 touch point strategy. We want to do a lot of test and refine. We could do A/B split testing, so you could run 3 different ad variations. It'll run them evenly, and then you can pick a winner and double down on that. Integrating analytics, so you can track traffic from LinkedIn back to your website, but really qualitatively, what are those people doing? Are they visiting more web pages? Are they spending more time on the site? Are they coming back more frequently? Great metrics. We'll talk a little bit about the lean marketing approach. Content's key because we use that to nurture the prospects, whether that's on LinkedIn or a blog or even your website.
And we just talked about that with our last webinar. We were all about creating that content, and this is what you do with it.
Yeah, that's key. So if somebody clicks on your ad, you want to continue to nurture that relationship with new content, and you're also, again, differentiating yourself from the competition.
So instead of just broadcasting "pick me,"
yeah,
you are able to solve those problems for that prospect and create that that desire to engage in a relationship with you.
Yes, absolutely. And really there's some triggers that we talked about. So if you're an accounting firm and tax season's coming up, that could be a great trigger.
So that trigger event thing that we talk all about during the initial stages of productive prospecting, everyone, pay attention to that because you're going to be using all of that information.
Yes, that's a good idea. So how can you get started? Now we're going to go from theory into activity. We start with an influence roadmap. It can be a 15-minute exercise, or it could be a couple-hour exercise if you wanted to bring it into a team. And this was the document.
This is the handout.
Yes, this is the handout. So I'm going to go through this briefly because we're going to delve deeper into that on the 13th, but identifying what topic are you trying to what topic is your content, or what subtopics around your overarching content? What's the focus area or practice? So if you're a law firm and you have a number of different practice areas, each practice should have their own blueprint. What's your objective? Are you trying to get clicks? Are you trying to get 15 qualified leads? So really documenting that. Then getting into the target audiences that we talked about. Who's your ideal client, primary audience, secondary audiences, the title, the industries, and then finally the creative side of it, which is a standard creative blueprint. What are your key messaging? What are your proof points? What's the one thing you want people to know or remember? And then what is the call to action? So this is critical to, I'm going to mix metaphors here, but this is really a recipe. And so if you have multiple people inside and outside of your organization working on a marketing campaign, this keeps everyone on the same page, because
Right.
if people are working on different recipes or different roadmaps, it will be, you're not going to get to where you need to be.
Discombobulated mess.
Yes, and on the 13th, we'll actually have one of these filled out so you can see what that looks like in real time. So the other elements to the roadmap are identifying your KPIs relevant to your organization, and we'll talk about that here in a second. Think about what your marketing objectives are. So again, we need to get 100 leads, and out of that, we need to get 5 sales qualified prospects.
Okay.
We need to prioritize the key audiences and really understand the customers or your prospect's customer journey. And then we've talked about content, but really, how do you tell your story with a purpose? So the KPIs are different for different organizations. Here is some KPIs that may be useful. So on the website, it's traffic, right? Maybe it's the page views, maybe it's e-commerce sales. On social engagements, are you getting people to share or to like your content? Now that may not be important. It may be more of getting the right visitors to click through to your website. Email marketing is a wonderful KPI. Are you getting opt-in email subscribers? Because that's a key part of your communication strategy. Email open rates, which would tell you your content is resonating or it's not. And then finally, on the transactional side, what's your cost per click for the advertising? What's your lifetime value of a client? So you may have to spend, especially in professional services, a fair amount, but your lifetime value for 5 or 10 years is almost exponential. It's not exponential, but it's significant.
Yes.
And then ultimately the revenue. So to me, the main KPI is revenue. Are these advertising programs producing revenue? And if they're not, we really need to rethink, is that something that we should be investing our time and money in? So we want to focus on communicating with the right person, with the right message in the right channel.
So that right person, right time, right reason.
That's right.
Here we go.
Lots of rights. So this is a methodology on how to identify the target audiences. And so starting at the top from your smallest audience possible, and at the bottom, that's all things to all people. And it's significantly more expensive to market all things to all people than it is higher up in the audience segmentation. So internal, if you're doing a LinkedIn campaign, let your staff and even vendors know, hey, we're going to roll out a new campaign. It's exciting. We're going to get new leads. They're going to be great leads, people that we want to work with, and therefore rising tides lifts all boats. It could be media and influencers. So if you're a technology company, a lot of the influencers are talking about the technology that they see the best fit for. So by getting on an influencer's radar, you're able to pre-sell your prospects because other people are talking about how great you are instead of you talking about how great you are. Referral partners, this is a wonderful opportunity to try to do some advertising with potential referral partners. So if you're a law firm and you get a lot of referrals from a particular type of law firm, hey, let's target those folks and see if we can't expand your referral network.
And law firms are a great example of being professions that love to play well with others. They refer really well back and forth, but it's hard to stay top of mind. So what you're saying is that LinkedIn advertising allows you to stay top of mind in a one-to-many approach instead of one-to-one.
Yes, yes. You could do both. You could do one-to-one with the target, but yes, it's one-to-many. And then finally on the customer and prospect. So let's say if we're a financial planning firm, our targets are dentists or doctors or CEOs or business owners, not everyone else. And so I encourage you to think through as narrow as possible who your targets are. And then what we're going to do is we're going to figure out what makes them tick. What are their key traits? What channels are they active? So maybe the media folks are kind of on LinkedIn, but the best way to engage them would be through another channel. So there's a lot of psychology in here, and then prioritizing and rank ordering your most profitable prospects. And so we put the bets on those prospects first, and then move on to the next set of prospects.
So, and one thing before we move to the next slide that Chris pointed out to me when we got started is if you're focusing on those top three on this list, the internal, the influencers, and referral partners, your dollar goes a million times farther than it does when you're directly targeting the prospects.
Absolutely.
So that's where I really want you thinking, as you're looking at this, I want you just having that at the back of your mind about this is how you can truly amplify your message within those second tier and third tier contacts that you may not be having coffee with once a month, but you can still stay top of mind with them and with all of their connections on LinkedIn.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic.
So a lot of folks have talked about the customer journey, and we're going to flip it a little bit and talk about the prospect journey. And think of this as digital body language, which the guy by the name of Steve, who founded a company called Eloqua, wrote a book on. Boy, probably almost 10 years ago now, but it's really about understanding the digital body language and your customer journey or prospect journey. So I'm going to go through a customer journey here real fast, and this is for a CPAP manufacturing international company, very big company, and they wanted to sell CPAP machines. So what we learned was people don't go search, I need a CPAP machine. There's some kind of trigger event and they have a lack of energy and they're doing Google searches and they click on an ad and maybe they read a blog post or opt into your newsletter. Maybe they do some more Google searching and then they go dormant. And then there's a second trigger. So there's a lot of activity here well before, at the very end, call receptionist with questions and book appointment by phone. So in order to get this person to go to the doctor, there's a lot of steps and triggers that we can understand, and then we can wrap marketing around that.
So what you're showing us here, Chris, is when I talk about how more than 2/3 of the buyer journey takes place before you ever even know they're a legit prospect for you. This is an example of how that journey takes place.
Yes, from the consumer perspective. Now this is clicking on a Google ad, and now we're going to get into LinkedIn. Now this is a real world example of the path to revenue. So in the lower left-hand corner, we start with research and the top consideration, and then we wrap marketing tactics around that. So this was a visualization that we could show to the board to show here's all the steps, and then here's how we could market people at the right time. So I know most folks here are not retail facing, so let's talk about a prospect journey from LinkedIn.
So let's use an example here of a financial advisor, because that's an easy one for us to kind of wrap our head around. So if this were a financial advisor that was targeting doctors or dentists, is that something that we could do here?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe to not confuse people, so this example is for a real estate prospect.
Got it.
From a law firm. So
okay.
I'm a law firm, and my practice is real estate, and I need to go find some great real estate prospects.
Okay.
And I'm going to target the company COO.
Got it.
Okay, so I'm putting myself in the COO shoes, and in this case, we're going to start with seeing a LinkedIn text ad that we've talked about, but there's no action, there's no click. But that kind of primed the pump to get people to like a company post, or to like a company page well before they ever go to your website. And most people are doing Google searches, so they want to see how are people talking about this particular company, are they in the media, and so on, in a positive light. Then on step number 6 here, they see a personalized spotlight ad, and then that's where we actually get them into the funnel. So they see the ad on LinkedIn, they click on it, they visit the website, and then they read blog number 1, blog number 2, they sign up for the newsletter, they read your newsletter, and then schedule a coffee, have a second meeting, and then get a signed contract. So this is an oversimplification, but again, there's a lot of due diligence and activity going on well before that coffee's scheduled.
And so, well before you really knew that they were a legit prospect for you.
Yes, and so the best way to identify the customer journey is to ask your best clients and prospects. Maybe ask somebody that didn't end up working with you, like what were we missing here? Maybe we didn't highlight our benefits as much as we should have, but understanding the customer journey and then how the LinkedIn ads are finding the right people at the right time in this journey so that you're using different ad formats at different times.
So, and just a plug for my email newsletter, week before last, I actually did one on interviewing the business you didn't get. And there was a prospect exit interview to do there that actually it's for the exact reason that Chris is sharing. So there you go, one more plug.
It could be an advisory panel too, a number of different, even a focus group. So the last thing the last seed I want to plant is to adapt a lean marketing approach. And what we mean by that is pretty simple: test, refine, and analyze. So we want to have a hypothesis, we want to put some stuff out there, we want to see if it hockey sticks up, meaning we have aggressive growth. And then in the bottom, we double down on the bets that are working. And if a campaign doesn't work for whatever reason, we put that in the recycle. So a peer of mine often says we want to step over pennies to pick up dollars, and we see a lot of companies stepping over dollars
to pick up dimes.
Yeah, to pick up a dime. So it's that lean approach, not doing a 12-month media spend, but having a number of different mini campaigns. And finally, people think in stories and not statistics, and so as you're putting together your content, making sure that there's some storytelling and that you're authentic and that you have some authority, you know what you're talking about, which everyone does, but
not everyone.
Well, I think that's a good point, but communicating that to your targets.
You're demonstrating your authority through your content.
Yeah, you're reinforcing it so that if I see an ad, I'm going to go to your social media and blog, I'm going to learn more about the company. So the key takeaways from today, and I know that this is drinking from the fire hose, but we wanted to hit everything at a top level to put everything in context, most importantly. But things continue to evolve. That will not change. They're going to evolve faster, but we need to focus on the fundamentals. Who are we talking to? What are we trying to say? What channel are they active in? We want to focus on marketing objectives because that's how we know if a campaign's working or not. You know, did it generate the amount of leads that we thought it would? Yes or no? Prioritizing the key audiences being the roadmap, understanding the digital journey, and then adopting that lean marketing approach. So I help companies with all of these types of things. This is a laundry list of some of the things I help companies with. But I know that we ran about 10 minutes longer than I thought, and we want to open it up for questions.
And I'm not going to lock things down right at our, 11 o'clock.
You're not going to kick me out?
I'm not going to throw him out. So
I've got as much time as we need.
If you want to even hang out a few minutes after for Q&A, we're totally good. But really quickly, I am going to dive into some of the questions. But before we do that, I do want to let you know I have referred Chris to several of my clients, and he has been just absolutely phenomenal. I love actually relating my own example. Throughout getting into the online and e-learning space, I had probably spent a combined total of $75,000 to $80,000 in trying to figure out marketing and web design and everything else. And I have to tell you that Chris has been amazing for me the past couple of years, primarily from the point of telling me what not to do. And there were so many times where I heard, hey, this would be a great idea, or you should do this. And then I dove into it. And Chris is pointing out the reasons why you can, but here will be your end result. And I have no idea where his crystal ball or magic mirror is, but he has saved me so much money and helped me make the right decisions. And it's one of those things, if we have a tendency to like to dive into marketing, but we really don't think about it strategically. And he's that guy that just makes sure that you stay lined up at everything that you do and you don't go chasing shiny objects with your marketing. And that's part of the reason why I'm so excited to have him, as well as Vicki and Josiah and Ann, at our workshop that's coming up on the 13th. So do make sure there's going to be a link shared with you for registration for that. If you are in the prospecting forum, it is included in your membership. So, but do make sure you register, because I've got limited seats available. And then we do have a few spots available if you want to participate as well there. Okay, now I want to dive into Q&A really fast, because I did have some questions that came up. So it seems as if one of the biggest questions that has come up is related to, at what level of client of LinkedIn do you have to be in order to participate in this? Do you have to be a paid subscriber? Do you have to be a premium member? Or is this something that if I'm even on the free side, I can go do this?
Yes, it's there. You do not have to sign up for any subscription or anything like that. It is a standalone service. So you can just go right to their advertising platform, even if you're not using any of the other services that they offer. So it's the same as Google and Facebook, that you don't, it's a standalone.
Okay. Fantastic. And we will also, I want to let you know, he has shared so much information, and I know that it's virtually impossible to capture everything that he has shared today. If you were trying to take notes, he's going to share the slides with you as well. You'll get the slides as well as a recording of our conversation today. So that'll be coming out. I'm not sure if you'll have it over the weekend. It may be Monday morning, but you'll definitely be getting all this insight as well. So now, there was a question here about Pro Finder on LinkedIn. So are you familiar with that service?
I'm not.
So Donna, are you here? I'm going to unmute you.
Is that a LinkedIn specific, or is that a third party that facilitates LinkedIn?
So nothing like ambushing you. I've unmuted you.
It is LinkedIn.
Okay.
So all I did was sign up to get leads from LinkedIn when they have a request for an executive coach. I haven't done much with it, but I hear negative and positive. Mostly negative things about it. So I just wonder what your thoughts were.
Have you,
Oh,
is it a service that you pay per lead that they send you? How does it work?
if I get business from it, then I would be paying for the service.
Yeah, I think
That's all I know.
I am.
I'll go check that out.
Yeah, we'll check it out, and we'll follow up and maybe include that in the newsletter or just a follow-up email. That's probably something that LinkedIn's continuing to test. I mean, they're just because they have an ad format doesn't mean they're going to keep that ad format. So it seems to be very narrow focused and on that kind of pay per performance. But yeah, let me kind of look into that, and we can provide a formal recommendation before the 13th and where
Yeah,
it may
because I'm
have some
kind of intrigued
applicability.
too. I think that might be kind of interesting. It sounds like it could be a cool service, but like you, I can also see where it could have some downsides to it. So
Okay. Well, I'm just curious. I appreciate your input.
yeah, I think it'll be fun to check it out and see, what other features there are available because LinkedIn, every time we turn around, it seems like they're adding something new. So, but
Yeah.
thanks for chiming in. So, okay, now what I know that I'm going to end up with probably a flood of questions that come up as everybody has gone through this whole process. So, but before I actually had one that was related to the text ads.
Okay.
So if I wanted to do a text ad, is it something that I could kind of dip my toe in the water in order to say, hey, want to get better at your prospecting, think of, or what do you kind of recommend as far as getting started on that?
Yeah, I think that approach would work. You only get, I want to say it's 30 or 35 characters. I can't
And
remember.
it's like 2 lines to a
Yeah,
total of
yeah,
60. So
yeah.
like that's not even half a tweet.
No, but it could be, uh, there's a better way for prospecting. We love to share more.
Okay.
Or having trouble getting the right clients. We can help. It could be white paper specific. How do you expand your referral network? Click here to download the white paper. It could be for a webinar too, or it could just be generic. So,
But you pay per click.
yeah, so you pay per click, and the way that it works is you go through the target audience and figuring out who you want to target with that, and then it'll give you a cost per click estimate, and it'll
Okay.
say $8 per click, and you say, $8, that's a lot of money. But again, with the text ads, people are just kind of glossing over those and planting some seeds. And yeah, you may get 1 or 2 or 3 clicks, which are going to be highly qualified in most situations. And then you can see, okay, well, did those clicks generate anything of value, or is there something else that we can test? Or maybe you just don't have any click through. Maybe you say, I'd like to introduce myself. My name's Brendan. I love to chat. Now, those are very oversimplified examples, but there's a lot that you can do. Just kind of, you could use frequency of messages too. So you could have 5 different ads. Maybe the first one is having trouble finding the right clients. Maybe the second one is technology slowing you down? Maybe the third one is how do you find the right referral partner? So you can actually build a cadence within those text ads.
Oh, fantastic.
So that you're
it's
not
like
just,
a campaign.
yeah, it is a campaign. So you're just not hammering somebody with the same message.
Okay, very, very cool. All right, so you have covered so much ground today, and I am so appreciative of your time and making the trek over here to the SalesWorks World headquarters. And I'm excited to hear what we're going to be going through on the 13th, because I know you've got some great insight, as well as Vicki and Ann and Josiah. This is just going to be an amazing day.
Yeah,
So,
and you'll get to see a full multifaceted perspective and approach so that you can learn the best practices with content and some of the things that I glossed over. Again, we would love to hear additional questions if you have any. You can see my email is chris@kovacdigital.com, and of course, you can email Brendan as well. And if there's something that we can explore and even add to the curriculum on the 13th, we'd love to do that, because we want it to be as maximum value for you guys.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you all very much for your time and for your attention today. Remember, to get what you want, you've got to help others get what they want. Have a great day, and I wish you good selling, and enjoy your holiday weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.